Hi, this is the help video for Excel Chapter 9, Pause and Practice. And before we start, I wanted you to note that the file that we're starting with is a little different than what it says in your textbook. So just make sure that you download this PP9-1 from the Dropbox of your Pause and Practice. Okay, so this chapter is all about macros. And so macros are just recordings of your steps. That's the start of them. They can turn into something very large, and you can turn them into actual Visual Basic for application programs, but we're just doing macros in terms of recording our keystroke, and so we can use it to automate repetitive tasks. So for example, if you had you printed a same set of reports out, you could name those report ranges, set up a macro and just say print this range, print this range, print this range. You can attach it to a button. You click on the button and boom, all your reports are printed out. It's quite cool. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this file that I downloaded from the Pause and Practice. I'm gonna let's do this again. I need to read what it says. Oh, Helen. All right, let's see if I messed myself up. Nope, I'm good. Okay. So one of the things that you want to make sure you have is your developer tab, and then this part should already be done, right? So this enable content. So if we come here to File, Options, Trust Center, show in the message bar. Okay, that one's good. We want macro. Disable all macros with notification. That's the default. So you would just want to make sure that is set. And then make sure you have your developer tab on. Okay. So we are actually have this done. This start of step 3C. We already had it that way. One of the things that you want to notice is when this file was downloaded, look at the extension on this. It's XLSM. So it's a Excel file that's macro enabled. That's what that M is telling you. So you want to pay attention to that when you're opening files, because one of the things that macros can do is it can bring viruses with it. So that's what the whole security thing's about. All right, so we're going to run a macro. So go to the developer tab and find the macro button, right? So right here it says insert date. That is a macro that's already created, and we're going to click on run. So we should get a date in cell A3, and that's what A30, sorry, that's what happened. So our macro, the whole purpose of it was to put the current date, right? That was created. So now let's look at how we can record a macro. And one of the things that I always like to do is kind of go through the steps and almost make a little script, because once you start recording your macro, everything that you do is captured, right? So all the typos, all the backspaces, all of that is included. It's captured, and every time you run it, you see those same mistakes happening. So we're going to come up here to record macro. And once I click record macro, you're going to see, okay, well, let's put our name in it. Okay, so we're going to call this first quarter all together. And then in the shortcut for your keyboard, I'm going to type a lowercase, I'm going to do Shift Q, which is going to turn it into, the shift is capitalizing it, so Control Shift Q will execute this first quarter. We want it to be in this workbook, and we can, the description is display first quarter in cell A32. Now, once I click on this, everything is going to be captured. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then look down here. Do you see this little box? This allows me to click here to stop. Or if you're still on the developer tab, you can click here. But if you're off of the developer tab, you don't have to go back here to stop recording. You can just use this button down here at the bottom. All right, so let's read what it says to do. Click in cell A32. Boom. Type first quarter with hopefully no typos. Hit enter. Okay. I'm going to stop recording. It's done, right? So let's go ahead and get rid of the text that we just typed in. And then let's go up to the very top up here. And let's use the key combination to run our macro. So that's Control Shift Q. And look, even though I was up here in A1, it took me down to A32, typed in first quarter, hit enter, and went to cell A33. That's what my macro did. So that's pause and practice 1. So that's pretty simple. So then pause and practice 9.2, we're going to look at taking a macro and putting it on a button. So, because like I would never remember Control Shift Q, like that just wouldn't happen. But it'd be really nice if there's a button there and it says, you know, type first quarter or input quarter, or in this case, we're going to do insert date, right? So I'm just going to keep it 9.1 right now. So we're going to go right here to step 6 and assign a macro to a button control. So we need to look at controls. So if you're on the developer tab, there's this group here called controls. So you always want to find, it looks like a toolbox with like a wrench and a screwdriver. If you open that up, it's going to bring up your controls. We want the form controls. We're not dealing with the ActiveX, right? We're dealing with the form controls. So the very first control is a button. So we're going to click on that, and it says draw a button. Gotta go up. E2 to F2. So I'm just going to click right here and drag it. It doesn't have to be exact, but you want to try and get it over top of that. And it says, okay, you're putting in a button. What kind of macro do you want? What do you want to attach to this button so that when someone clicks on it, it runs that macro? Well, we want the insert date macro. So we're going to click on that, and then we're going to click OK. So now we have our button, right? But it says button 1. No one's going to know what the heck that means, right? So watch my mouse. Out here at the edge, boom, I'm inside, and it's the I-beam. Click when it's the I-beam, and we're going to get rid of this where it says button 1 and type insert date. So you'd put inside this button, you know, like we used to do. Print, you know, you do them all the time. Print or cancel or close or whatever. That's what we're going to put. So put something in there that's meaningful, and the person knows what they're going to get when they click that button. All right. So then it says click on cell C3. All we're doing is you could click anywhere. You just want to get off of that button. So now I want to go back to the button. And you see I have like a pointy finger now. That would run it if I left clicked. But what I want to do is right click. And I get my control handles around it again. I'm going to go down to Format Control. That then takes me up to where I can format how this looks. And so they want us to do bold italic. Let's see. And that's it. So they want us to make it bold italic and then just click off of it. Okay. So now, if I were to run that, so let me get rid of this and just show you. If I run that, boom. So there it is. I don't have to know what key combination or anything. All right, so now let's take a look at what these macros are that we have built. So Developer tab, macros. It has a list of them. Let's choose Insert Date and click the Edit button. And watch what happens. We're going to leave Excel here for a minute. So it went to my other window. Okay, so now this is what we get, right? So this is what's known as Visual Basic for applications. Okay, so you could do really robust programs in here. We just did a simple macro that recorded steps. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what this is. So range A30 dot select. So that's kind of the format of things, this dot, and then this is kind of the action or what you're putting into it, right? What it's going to be. So when it says range and then in quote A3, that is specifically saying, man, go to A30 and select that cell. That's what, when I click and run this macro, that's how I get to A30. The next line says, in your active cell, which would be A30, put this formula of today, and that's why the function today is entered, because in the active cell, in the current row, in the current column, put this formula. Then go to the next cell. We did an enter or whatever, it would go to A31 select. So all you're doing is moving to A31 and making that the active cell. So it wants us to change it from 30 to 31 and then from 31 to 32. So all we're doing is we're going, instead of A30, we're going to go to A31 and put today in and then go down to the next cell. So I am in Visual Basic for applications, but I want you to look at this very left button here. This is the Excel button. That'll take me back to out of Visual Basic for applications and back to Excel. So now we're going to run a macro again. I still have that 4-5 there. Look at what happens when I run this. I get it underneath, right? Because I said go to 31, and then look at where I ended up at 32. So let's get rid of what we have in 31. I did this in reverse order because I wanted you to see that they both ended up there. All right, so we're going to save this. I'm going to end this movie, and then all we have is pause and practice 3. All right, thank you.